Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Easter Pod. I'm your host, Corey Easterday, and on this episode, we are chatting with the one and only Billy Mays III. If you've listened to the show or followed along for any length of time, you know that we don't put out a large volume of episodes. In fact, this is episode number 32. If I was really clever, Billy and I actually discussed this, I would have made it episode 33 for, tying in with his Infinite Third moniker, but that's neither here nor there. This is episode 32, and the podcast started in 2020. So, what was that, 7-8 episodes a year on average? I do struggle, I'll be honest, I do struggle with my inner critic from time to time on that, but today's episode is a great reminder to me of why I've leaned toward quality over quantity the past several years. I do think you can have both, don't get me wrong, but just within the boundary of that idea that I talked about on the show before, as it relates to, like the nonprofit work through the laundry project or other things in life, there's a certain element of like, hey, do what you can. And it's honestly why, even though there hasn't been a high output volume-wise, I'm truly grateful to still have this podcast rocking and rolling, getting better all the time, and to just have it in my life, to have the space this podcast gives me, because it's the opportunity to dive deep with people I connect with and find interesting. Billy Mays III and I, who has become a good friend over the years, we did just that and really had the space to breathe and just cover so much ground in our conversation. Billy is, as you'll learn, a super creative and passionate dude, very deep thinker. It was cool. This was the podcast, and I joke with people, I started this podcast to obviously want to highlight people, but I started this podcast to make friends and get to know people. Kind of a half joke, kind of true, because it really is a venue where, for example, during my conversation with Billy, I discovered we had the longest conversation we've ever had, and I discovered that, we share a similar perspective on a lot of things, and it was just cool to connect over that shared love of music, creativity, laundry, even the not so fun stuff, like our mutual connection when it comes to grief and loss, and the idea of hope and how you work through those things and, carrying on loved ones' legacies. This is a very meaty episode, but there's that same idea too of digging into the projects that he's worked on, that he's involved with, that he's still pursuing. And I really do feel like in the kind of hour plus that we spoke, you get a really good feel for who Billy is and, some of those commonalities we share that I talked about. So as always, the Easter Pod is striving to bring you, quote, stories of rad humans that inspire you to engage the world with creativity and hope. Billy is absolutely one of those humans, and so are my friends, Sarah and Scott, who comprise the band Fox and Bones from Portland, Oregon. Fox and Bones were the featured guests on the most recent episode of the Easter Pod, and we had a really fun and illuminating conversation while they were on tour here in Charlotte earlier this year, so I definitely encourage you to check that episode out. You can follow the show at the Easter Pod on all social platforms, and be sure to subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice so that you never miss an episode. If you dig the show, please leave a rating and a review, share it with friends, all the things. The feedback always means a lot and really helps the show. And just to shout some stuff out before we get into the conversation with Billy here, shout out Easterday Creative at Easterday Creative, easterdaycreative.com, for joining forces with the Easter Pod to bring you these stories of rad humans. Special thanks to my friends Speak Seldom for creating the music for this episode, and to my friend JD Laird and his company Token Creative for helping to produce this episode. Check out Token's work by visiting tokencreative.co. I know this will sound weird since it's, ostensibly my podcast, the Easter Pod, but I realize that I actually am terrible at doing any kind of self-promotion through the podcast. Again, I understand how ironic that is. But you can follow me, Corey Easterday, on social media at the Easter Dude or at Corey Easterday on X. And I post about all kinds of things, share all kinds of content. We have the podcast, the nonprofit work with current initiatives that I'm involved in that Billy and I cover a good bit about in the opening here. I just started doing stand-up comedy last fall. So as I'm going to open mics, doing shows, whatever, you can post in clips of what a goober I am. You can check all that out at the Easter Dude. Easterday creative stuff. I am a drummer. I play drums, music. We're covering it all at the Easter Dude. So go ahead and check that out. You can help me justify paying for the blue check marks. Yes, I'm not ashamed to admit that I do that. Not popular enough or famous enough that the social media gods descended from their thrones and offered it to me. Definitely one of the people that pays, but in all seriousness, would love to connect with you if you're out there listening. And most importantly, check out Billy Mays III on all social platforms at Infinite Third, where you can also find out about the projects he's involved in. They are many. Check out his website, infinitethird.com, for his music, upcoming show schedule, merch, all the good stuff to help support his music through platforms like Patreon. You can stay in touch with his work, his projects, other things he does like Mouth Council that we cover a little bit. Check out billymays.org. We talk about that a good bit in the episode. So much more. Check it all out at Infinite Third, infinitethird.com, billymays.org, and listen to Infinite Third on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your music. And one last note, I did mention during the episode that we were recording video for the first time for the podcast. Still undergoing a learning curve with that one and working out the kinks, but stay tuned. I do hope to be sharing more videos and clips of these episodes in the near future. And without any further ado, I bring to you my conversation with Billy Mays III. Folks, you are in for a treat for today's episode, because my guest is someone I've wanted to have on the pod since before it began over 4 years ago, which is crazy to think about. And we're finally making it happen. He's an incredibly talented musician and performer and an all-around phenomenal human being who I'm so grateful to call a friend as I sit across from him and stare into his eyes. This is the first time we're doing video too, by the way, so that's going to be part of this. But wait, I'm not done yet. Sorry, I need to read. But I'm not done yet. There we go. We're not going to cut that. I just want to get that phrase right. He's a multi-talented creative with a ton of projects that we're going to dive into today. We have Billy Mays III here. Welcome to the Easter Pod. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Of course, this has been a long time in the making. I think I met you probably in 2019, I want to say, through our mutual friend, Jason Sowell, who is the founder and CEO of Current Initiatives and The Laundry Project, which I have discussed on the podcast many times before. I've even had Jason on the podcast a couple times. And maybe as a good entry point into our conversation, you can describe how you kind of got involved with the Laundry Project and stuff, and how our paths eventually crossed through a campaign we were kind of working on 5 years ago.
Yeah, funny enough, I think I was on Jason's podcast that year as well.
You were, because I remember listening to that and being like, that guy would be cool to have on my podcast. I'll start one day.
Jason, I was thinking about this recently because we had met up when I was in Florida, and I realized that we don't know how we know each other. It's just like through the network, through the community, and something just felt very synchronized with the way we are and stuff. So the campaign that you're talking about was basically just a little mini fundraiser that I came up with because the Dunedin Brewery in Florida offered to do a Billy Mays IPA, as a tribute. And the idea came about to where they would give, I think it was $1 or $2 from every beer sold on tap there at the brewery, straight to the laundry project. So it was basically just one run of this beer, and we raised some money for the project, and that was kind of like our first time really doing anything together, and it was really just a low-key thing. It was fun.
Yeah, and the shirt I'm wearing that represents the likeness and image of Billy Mays, and was part of that campaign. And there's a sticker on the laptop here from BillyMays.org. Can you talk about? I mean, you are the son of the late great Billy Mays, the famous pitchman, Billy Mays III. Can you talk about what BillyMays.org, how that kind of ties into us getting connected in the laundry project, and just I was reading about today on the website, just how really the goal, through partnerships like the laundry project, is carrying on your dad's legacy.
Yeah, there's actually, my dad's been gone for 15 years. Last month, June 28th, 2009 was when he died. And it's one of the earliest things that popped into my head after he died was just how can I do something good from this? And that idea started with these stickers of his face. The image that you see there, we had little stickers made. And I didn't actually make the stickers. One of the people that we worked with at the time had stickers made overnight and brought them to the funeral in Pittsburgh and was handing them out. So there were all these stickers of his face. People were wearing them, putting them on things. And at the time, people started sending me photos of these stickers on cool things around the world. They went on a trip to Paris and they'd put it on some bar or something. I don't know, just stuff like that. And in reaction to that, I made a website called where'sbillymays.com. And it was just a fun, Tumblr style thing where it was just all these pictures that people would send me. I would just post them. And I wanted to kind of evolve that into some sort of nonprofit activity, charity, fundraising type thing. And basically it just stayed really not even in the fundraising sense. There were no funds involved. It was just literally something I did with my time to keep track of all the tributes and tribute art and memes and stuff like that. And so I had a couple social media sites, and they all kind of culminated to finally just I was able to purchase BillyMays.org, which we didn't own any of these domain names. And when I changed it to BillyMays.org, that's where it became I feel like I've been trying to do this for a long time, but what could it be? And I'm honestly still trying to figure that out, because this laundry project thing, where for anyone who doesn't know, it's about free laundry day pop-ups in communities. And I've volunteered at them. That's how we met. We met at one of the laundromats. It's just so in line with my dad and his legacy that I can't not support it. And I have a vision of it coming together in an even bigger way where I could support the project. In the way that my dad would support a product, I want to support this cause. And that's kind of just something that I've been sort of slowly circling around. And I've learned to not rush it, because my dad, I don't know if you know this, he was only 40 when he got on TV. And I'm not even 40 yet. So I'm okay, if I'm going to become some kind of pitchman for something I believe in, I have time to let it develop and let me become a mature individual first. But to finish that thought, basically, if you go to BillyMays.org, I look at it as sort of a digital museum. There's literally a museum section, and it's split up into tribute art, memes and mentions, and cosplay. And there's just all these images of fun stuff that I've found over the years. And that's the part I'm proud of. That's just fun. And we're trying to now bridge the gap into what can this do for the greater good?
I love that. And I'm on BillyMays.org right now, looking at a lot of the tribute, the digital museum section. This is incredible. Because this was obviously I knew who your dad was, most of the rest of the world, growing up. But I wasn't aware of you or the various connection to laundry, wanting to be I knew some of the products he pitched, obviously, stuff like that, but it really all came together for me when we did that original campaign in 2019. And I found out, I remember Jason just calling me and being oh yeah, great news. Billy Mays III And I'm like, wait, but like I'm sure a lot of people are like, wait, from Billy, know what I mean? Like, yeah, like he wants to get involved with the laundry project. And you and I were talking about this on the way over here to record the pod, but just the whole like long live your laundry. Apparently that was one of your dad's catchphrases.
Yeah, because OxyClean is like extending the life of your laundry. And it was just like kind of a catchy phrase that he used sometimes. But, it kind of means more in the context of the laundry project rather than just representing soap or detergent. It's like in this context, it means a lot more. It actually, what Jason and you guys have done with the laundry project has helped expand my idea of like just how I look at laundry, because it's based on the concept that like, everyone deserves to have clean clothes. And like, it's so simple. And like, I so wish that my dad would have known about it when he was alive, because I feel like it would have been the next logical step for him to take, would be to just like use his power for good, like, not that it wasn't good that he was doing commercials, but that was all just for profit, like for someone's profit. And, my goal now is to find a way to take his spirit, which is, this energy, this salesman energy, like, but it was his art form, and figure out a way to use it for good. Like, I don't know how else to say it, like not for profit. I don't know. Like his whole life was this capitalistic he was this instrument for capitalism. And like, I just want to see if there's more to it, and if there's a way we can help,
100%. Obviously just because I'm personally connected with the laundry project, my way into it was, as people have listened to the pod or know my story for me describe, my way into the laundry project was just growing up through my own family experience of being raised in a single mom household for the majority of my childhood, and us needing those types of services and like feeling in real time what an essential service laundry is, and being on the side of it as a family where whenever there were groups of people or individuals that took the time to kind of step into our lives and care about us or help meet our needs in a very tangible way, like the laundry project does, that instilled hope in us just as a family going through that. And so I feel like that's a big reason why I've gotten on board with the laundry project about 14 years ago now, and have stuck with it for so long, and have wanted to be in this line of work, and why it's so cool to connect with people like you and to hear about your story and more about your dad's legacy. Is just, it really does impact people in tangible ways and instill hope. And it seems like such a small thing, like laundry. Laundry is not something I ever really grew up thinking about outside of just not being able to afford it. But I feel like maybe I've overemphasized it at times on the podcast, but it really is those small, tangible acts of kindness and love that can not just give hope to someone's life, but help meet a tangible need, help them, take the next steps, like self-actualize, all the deeper stuff. It's just that love and that kindness we're able to show to one another through those tangible acts. And so I remember thinking this at the time, and even more true now that I've, known you for the last 5 years, just how cool it is that you're wanting to dive into that and carry on your dad's legacy in that way, and use kind of the Billy Mays brand and name and the merch and the stickers and the shirts and all that kind of stuff to do something that is going to have a big impact, and already has through the campaigns and the fundraising and the laundry projects, but really does, much like your dad had this like big national global impact, through who he was, you think about it on the individual person level, like how it really does change someone's life, kind of in the day to day, outside of just that big impact it has. It's like impacting real people in real time. And I think it's great that you're dedicated to that. And, like I said, I'm biased because it's our cause, but just that you're the type of person that would gravitate toward doing that type of thing anyway. It said a lot about you to me then, and that's carried true in the time I've known you, just like that's who you are as a person, it's your character.
Thanks. Yeah. Part of the context is that I didn't grow up really with my dad around. My dad and mom got divorced when I was 3, and I lived with my mom. But I mean, I kept in touch with my dad, but he was a traveling salesman for that whole time. And so, like I said, he didn't really become a famous person until after I was out of high school. So I ended up going to college and being closer to him in Florida. And then after college, around 2006, I moved in with him. So I got to live with him for the last 3 years of his life. And it was like a really important time for both of us because we didn't really have like a close relationship, but I basically became his like right-hand man. I was like recording his voiceovers at our house and stuff. And I was the only person around him that was really thinking about that he has fans and he should interact with them. And like, just, it wasn't, this was like very early Twitter. Like I got him on Twitter in like 2008. And of course he passed away in 2009. So there was all this energy that I was putting into his career from this really specific side of like giving. And when he died, it was just like, what am I going to do with that? And that's kind of like where we're at still. It's like, there's clearly this energy that he left behind that I'm kind of just like sitting with. Like, I just like am the window to it. Like if I wasn't out there doing any of this stuff, like it would just be this, there wouldn't be any like, there would be nothing tangible, you know, it would just be a couple memes and whatever. And that's fun too. Like that's what it is. So I'm just trying to like harness that energy and kind of like keep it alive and keep it organized. And I don't know. I sound like I can't finish the sentences because I haven't really talked about it in this context a lot. Cause a lot of times it's just talking about how funny it is that there's memes and all that. But like, I'm trying to get to the heart of what is really happening. Like, what did he leave behind? And what does it mean? And should anything be done with it? I believe it should. I think that like people remember him and they have fond memories of him. I just posted a video that someone shared with me from TikTok, and it was a young lady who was autistic, and she went on a like 1.5, 2 minute explanation of why autistic kids were so drawn to my dad's commercials. And it was because he was so passionate about this one thing, and it would help them like focus for a minute. And it was just like eye-opening after all these years that I'm hearing an angle on it that I would have never considered. And it's just, I don't know. I want there to be more to it. Like I want there to be something even more positive that comes out of it, and not just like, oh, you know, he died young and that was it. You know, like I think there's just more to it.
That hits me deep because, you know, you and I have talked about this in some capacity before, but I lost my dad about a year after yours passed away in 2010, and very different circumstances. I'm not trying to compare and contrast. You know, there's this one level where grief is grief, you know, you losing a parent, but I also want to be sensitive and empathetic to like, it is different circumstances, you know, but what the connection I'm trying to make ultimately is that it does hit me deep. And one of the reasons I felt so kind of like just drawn to you as a friend and your work and the way you've tried to carry on your dad's legacy. And I should say too, part of what plays into this is, you know, we lost my mother-in-law, Megan's mom, Mary Ann, last fall, and that was incredibly painful. So you go through those kinds of things, and you really, you know, unfortunately, grief is something that surrounds a lot of us, and losing loved ones and kind of going through that. And you really do, for me, the last several months, it's been this like, or whether it was for my dad, you know, over the last 14 years or for Megan's mom in a much shorter period of time, it's like you really do start to think through, how can I carry on my loved one's legacy? How can I be an embodiment of all the, you know, because humans are complicated. How can I be an embodiment of all the good they brought into the world, of all the love and whatever? And that is something that weighs on me heavily, thinking about, you know, anyone I've lost that's been close in that scenario. So I do think, you know, and like you've described, it has been really cool just following you on social media these years to see, you know, you reposting and retweeting and sharing on Instagram. Like your dad lives in the zeitgeist, like to this very day, which is, I think, incredibly cool. Like, and it's incredibly cool to me the way you've just interacted with that and are more than willing to just like, 'cause there's one universe where you could just be very closed off to it. Like, this isn't your family, like get out of here, you know, like, let me have my grief and it's our family. But the way you've been open to, you know, just sharing other people's perspectives and memories that they have of him, you know, like you said, that video and stuff. So all that to say, like, I do empathize on that standpoint. And I think it's why we've been able to become friends. And I just think it's cool what you've been able to do tangibly in the world to do some of those things that I find myself thinking about all the time, of like how to carry on a loved one's legacy.
Well, if I could say, like, you're right that it's the same. Like anyone losing a parent, like it hits, there's all these different details, but it's like there's something really human about it that's just like we all kind of deal with this thing of loss, you know, whatever that is, impermanence. And to say that mine was really different, like, is true. And it was just, but it's not in the ways you think. Like, it is in the ways you think different. There was a lot of hard things that came with it, with like press and just it being so public. It did weigh on me almost like just as much as just losing him, because it just felt like violating in some ways to like see a TMZ headline about me or my dad, you know. But I will say, like, the trade-off is that, and this plays into like what we're talking about, is that I pretty much like survived because of this like public support that I got from strangers. So a lot of people go through grief and, you know, they're very alone in it, even just inside their own little family. And I feel like I was lucky to have strangers and just extended friends that knew what I was going through and like tried to support me in some way. So like I lived on Twitter in 2009 because that's where it all happened. It's really dumb, but what happened is I had a BlackBerry at the time, and when he died, I got the news in the morning and I tweeted it like maybe a half hour later, because I was so connected with Twitter at the time, because we were just interacting with people a lot. And I said something like, my dad didn't wake up this morning, like, you're all going to hear about it soon, I'm sure. And it turns out like all the news outlets were using that to confirm that it happened. And they were showing my tweet on TV. And that's why a lot of people look back at 2009 as like this. That's why there's a South Park episode that's called Dead Celebrities, because that was when we all started to grieve at the same time for dead people. It was Michael Jackson 3 days before my dad. It was Ed McMahon before that, Farrah Fawcett.
I do remember that collective. Yeah.
Patrick Swayze, you know, there were just a lot that year. So then what happened, and this is to the social media part and the public part, is that I think it was Alyssa Milano, the actress, who retweeted my thing and just said like, everyone go show Billy some love. He lost his dad today. And little did she know that like I got so many follows and interactions that my BlackBerry like went out of commission. It was like, it bricked. I couldn't do it. I couldn't like take the calls about like what I needed to coordinate with my dad. So like I had like a BlackBerry that just, I couldn't do anything with. If you turned it on, it was just notification after notification. I didn't even know I had notifications on. I was getting so little interaction, but then all of a sudden I got, I don't know, it's like only like 20,000 followers or whatever. But to me, it was just like, it was this outpouring of love that really like helped me at that time. Cause I felt like, oh wow, like I didn't anticipate that public part of it. And then the other public part that I didn't anticipate is that there's a very small percentage of people that will go out of their way to try and hurt you, a stranger, you know? And I lived with that for a couple years before I really had to like face it. And like, I did like exposure therapy to that. At first it was just always so hurtful when I would see some kind of like really personal negative remark, like directed at me, like really bad things. I'm not even going to say them. Sometimes just like at me even. And you know, I know that what drives people to do that is they're going through their own issues and whatever. But at some point in like 2013, 14, I had to like just expose myself to and read everything. I would like search out for a while. I was just searching out the negativity. And once I realized that like, it doesn't really affect me if I don't let it, like there was something that like freed up, and then I could just be like, oh, you know, it like hardened me in like the good way to this negativity. You never really get over it when some stranger like tries to say something really mean to you. I just feel like that's not something anyone should really just have to be like hardened against. But yeah, so that's the two sides of it, of the public part, is that I got support and I got really uncalled for, very small percentage, but still it sticks out because it hurts.
That's so wild to me that anyone, but you're right. It's because people are going through their own crap. But, and two, like there's that public part. And I mean, it also like, I think just having gone through so much grief personally, and I apologize a little bit. I expect to kind of like, but I think it's good. Like, like, important. Yeah, I think we're similar in that we like to try to get to like the deeper side of this kind of stuff. But like, I think part of it too is like, I just have so much more empathy now for like the sameness of the hard things that we go through, like losing loved ones, but also the uniqueness of every person's story, and not wanting to like imbue my perspective or how I've dealt with it or how I kind of, more so presenting like, this is my experience with it. This is how I've tried to deal with it, cope with it. But also like a true desire to want to be sensitive to like everybody's story is different going through that stuff. And the more I've like had to feel grief on a deep personal level, especially in recent months, the more I've just found myself being like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do or how to support someone. But I know that similar to what you said, just that act of support and that act of love is so key and so huge. And I also, like my dad was not a public figure, but I was so lucky that I had friends in college that surrounded me with the same kind of like love and support you described from like a public setting, and friends and family that you had. I had that on the level of I remember friends coming together and like all banding together and getting me like a Christmas gift that year or whatever. Like, because I had lost my dad, and then my family went through this time where we were briefly displaced, like didn't have a place to live for a little bit, and so I just remember feeling that same kind of rallying support. And that rallying support is why, I'm even sitting here today, is like having that kind of community in my life, and why it's important to me to do this podcast or do the laundry project. And I imagine similar for you, just be about things that are about fostering community and creativity and ensuring that nobody has to go through any of these things in isolation. And, this really does kind of get to the heart of the matter. I feel like just digging deeper a little bit. So.
Yeah. I mean, what you're talking about is like even more than I had been seeing in the laundry project. And it makes me wish, it just makes me want to do more, if I can. And, we all are kind of struggling with our own stuff. And I feel like, it's that thing where you have to, like, self-care allows you to take care of others. And it's like this, just hearing you talk about it, like really makes me appreciate that people like you are out there, and, people who are aware of it, because I don't know, you go out in the world sometimes and there's a lot of like repression of this kind of thing. And that's not a judgment on people. It's just like we repress as humans things that are too heavy to hold. And then it comes out in all these different sideways kind of ways where, it's aggression or anger and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think we just need a little bit more of a softer world sometimes.
I agree. I do that all the time. There's ways I, daily try to repress and cope with this different, like heavier things or get away from it entirely. But I appreciate your willingness to like talk about that stuff and open up about it. I don't even know if you and I have had that deep of a conversation about it offline. So that's why I'm kind of like,
I'm here to talk about shallow stuff only.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
So, I just appreciate your openness to that on that level, and being willing to share with myself and folks that are listening. But to tie it kind of into there's no easy transition talking about grief and losing loved ones and the impact that has. But
well, thankfully, grief and losing loved ones is woven into everything I do in life. So if we talk about my music, it's just going to be the same thing we're going to talk about. So whatever we're going to transition to is going to still be a perfect segue.
Act like you've been on podcasts before. Like you knew exactly what I was going to. It was funny because I was putting together the intro too, and I was like trying to remember because when you go online and you're like, did Billy Mays say, but wait, there's more, and there's the whole Mandela effect, and you made you could speak to it better than I could, but you made a whole video about it.
Basically, there's the meme that goes around all the time is my dad's face with, but wait, there's more. And it got really big again in 2020 when it was like World War III and then COVID and then it was like, but wait, police brutality. Like it was like 2020 comes in and it's just like, but wait, there's more.
Yeah.
And people would send it to me all the time, and they still always send it to me whenever it's used. But the funny thing is that he never really said it. So when I was on TikTok for a while answering questions about my dad, which I'm not anymore because it's just like, it's not good for mental health to try to manage a channel like that sometimes. There was a video of a guy who said like, did you know that Billy Mays never said the words, but wait, there's more? And then like, it was meant, and then I stitched it where it like played that. And then I stitched in this video where it's an outtake where my dad runs into a scene of someone else's infomercial and says, but wait, there's more. And and it was kind of like a joke.
Yeah.
But so I started with that. And then I kind of gave my assessment of like, yeah, he never really said it for these reasons. But it's more, we all remember it because of the meme that goes around. And like, it's more of a metaphor. But wait, there's more. Like he said different things, but that's the cliche of what was doing anytime he said like, I'm not done yet, or but that's not all, or I think there was a couple more, but essentially, no, he didn't really. You can't really find any infomercials where he said it. There might be a couple out there where like he had one take where he did it that way.
I feel like that's something I learn about like once every 2 years, and I forget that I knew that, and then it blows my mind all over again, like today. And I was like, oh, but. Point being, I'm just a very unoriginal podcaster of all the interviews you've done. So I was like, oh, in the intro, I'm gonna drop the "but I'm not done yet" line when describing you.
You said, I think you ended up saying, "but wait, I'm not done yet."
Yeah, so. I did say, and I do,
which is valid.
Yeah, we're not gonna cut that, but I tried to redo it. I wanted to get it right. We don't want the mishmash of the three different catchphrases, but. Point being, speaking of being unoriginal in my podcasting and having you as a guest, I do want to talk about your music, but kind of the through line of what we were just talking about. And again, this is just like as somebody that's been a fan of your work since I met you and loves to like follow along on social media and see all the cool shows and different things that you've been able to do and put together. And I don't, mean to fanboy too hard about it because we are friends, but like, I love your art. I appreciate your art. It's been very meaningful to me on a personal level. Like the music you made and all through the pandemic, I attended as many of your live streams as I could. I remember looking forward to that.
Well, it makes sense because my music finds, I don't have a huge following, but it finds people that have experienced loss. And so like, and that's just because that's where it came from. I made music since I was in high school, like since I was 16, but I don't feel like I actually started being music until 2009 when my dad died. And that's the same year that I decided to make my first album and release it. And that was my therapeutic process to get through that first 6 months of grief, was to finish this album that I had in my mind. And it's called Gently. And it's still a pretty special album because there's nothing else like it. It's just from that time. It was a very raw time. And it's very like hopeful, but you can tell it's like going through it. But anyway, so then my mission of music became catharsis, was that like it's my outlet to kind of express these deep hidden feelings bubbling up. So fast forward till now, 15 years later, I play, you've seen it on the streams, like I sit on the floor when I play, I improvise everything. And the point of that is that like I create a space that's kind of like a sacred space where I just kind of let happen what needs to happen. And it tends to get a little bit intense sometimes. But it's all done within this container of like atmosphere and kind of ambiance. So the point of it though is like the reason I kept doing it in the years after I made that first album was that I started playing live, and I kind of struggled with like not feeling like good enough as a musician, but also like feeling like as an artist I had a lot to offer, just even as like a not very like technically proficient musician. I could still go in front of people and like express what I'm feeling in a valid way, and people would respond with like, I started hearing the feedback from people at my shows where they basically had the same experience I had, where I would improvise something and it would be this cathartic bubbling up and like this release. And like, that's what I needed at the time. I needed to cry, or I needed something like that. And the music did that. And then the people would have that same experience that I had. And I'd realize, oh, like me having the experience is what inspires them to feel okay to have the experience. So that became like my whole reason for doing it, for myself, selfishly, to have that outlet, but then the people get something out of it too. So I've just honestly my music doesn't really evolve in a linear way. It's kind of like this, it's this like living thing that just kind of like grows in this spiral kind of way where it evolves in like unexpected ways and it becomes something new, but it always feels like that cathartic space that I create, because that's what I'm doing. And you've heard my live streams and stuff, and the live streams were a way during 2020, or 2020 through 2022, let's say, of figuring out how to connect with people. And the funny thing about the live streams was that it might have been a better platform for my kind of music, because people were allowed to be in the comfort of their own homes. I'm in the comfort of my home. I can do all these cool things with the visuals, as a side note, but it just, the other part that was unexpected was that there's a chat and I can read the chat while I'm playing, and the chat can influence what I'm doing just without trying. Like, I would just look at what people are talking about and I would be able to read that passively, because I'm kind of like in some kind of trance anyway. So it doesn't matter if I read something or not. Like, it doesn't like throw me off. So it introduced this kind of like telepathic element to my music that doesn't happen at shows. At shows, I just have to like trust that people are out there thinking thoughts, and I don't know what they're thinking, but on a live stream, they can give me feedback directly. So I don't live stream right now, but I kind of miss it for that reason, because it was a really kind of magical evolution of my music.
And I do think that's what's so great about your music. You use kind of the phraseology several times in describing it, of like how it connects with people, the communal sense of it. And I think that ties into what we were talking about with that like love and support through something like a laundry project, or like through your music. It's this way that it's this thing that ultimately does like draw people in and connects people, connects them to you, connects them to each other. I love how you view your music and your art in that communal sense. And that's very much the vibe and the presence you give off through your music, but also through like your social media presence and stuff, is like everyone feels invited into the Billy Mays the Third orbit, like everyone feels included into that orbit, and the way you're just kind of like feeding off other people and their thoughts and sharing and doing. And it was so cool to like sit through those live streams and like be digging the music or whatever, but then to see exactly what you're describing, it made me feel like a super old guy, because I'd be like, what's all this Twitch lingo people are using? Or like, what are these? But it was just cool to see people like chiming in with their thoughts and coming together. And I feel like I should say just logistically, like for anyone that doesn't know, so your artist name is Infinite Third. Something I pulled off your website, theinfinitethird.com, that I like, kind of one of the last sentences you use to describe your music is intense yet gentle, focused yet wandering, dreamlike yet grounded in reality. The world of Infinite Third is a mind-altering place that's never the same twice, but somehow always feels familiar. I think that's a great way to describe it. But
somebody wrote that for me. But yeah, I think the point of that whole thing was that like I feel a lot of like paradox in my music, in that it's very heavy sometimes, but it's also the most ambient that you can get with music, like drone ambient, like tones in the same movement. Like it's all kind of, it goes from the most extreme to the other extreme in a lot of different ways. And I think that was kind of what I was explaining there. But also the part at the end where it's about never the same twice, but feels familiar, is like that still resonates with me now, because like I said, I don't know if you get this, but like I never play the same thing again. Like it's something about my process that like I can't. And so in that sense, you'll never see me play the same set twice. But there's something about it that like, it kind of has the same types of arcs and recognizable, familiar movements to it. So I don't know. It's like I don't get the luxury, and this is just by my own choice, I don't get the luxury of like just playing my songs. I play my emotions, and then like they come out differently every time, but they, a person has continuity in their feelings from month to month or day to day or week to week. So I don't know. I think it's just a way to say like, it's a paradox. On one hand, I don't I don't even take credit for my music. Like sometimes I listen to my music and I'm like, well, I didn't make that, just because like it doesn't feel like it comes from me. I'm in some kind of weird trance sometimes where it's like I can't take credit because I didn't like mentally come up with this. All the best parts are like I'm not there to make it. So it's like I have to trust this like unseen force. And so I think that's what all that paradox is trying to say. Like if you ever hear me say that like my music is good, it's not because I'm good at making music. I'm good at like letting music happen. And the better I am at getting out of there and not thinking about it and not taking credit for it, the better it becomes. So like it's this whole process of removing myself and my ego as much as I can. So I understand that it could come across as egoic to say that like, oh, that song was good or that set was good. But it's genuinely like I'm listening to it as though someone else made it, because I don't think I made it. Is that too out there to say?
No, it actually makes a lot of sense. Like I resonate with that a lot, because one of the things I appreciate about you as an artist and why I've come back to your music so often, like my first introduction to Infinite Third and your music was probably Channels, the 2017 album you released. That was, I think, the first one I listened to. And then we'll dive into it a little bit, but this Holy Noise that you just released, like I'm not lying. I think we have listened to it all the way through. Like
it's 9 hours
and
long,
on repeat.
yes.
Yeah, 9 hours. But I resonate with it so much because I think because of that, how you described it, that it does feel like this kind of spiritual, living, breathing, organic thing. And it's not, like I'm not going to come to one of your shows and be like, play track 36 from Holy Noise.
Well, there was a brief year-long period where I played the Channels album live.
Okay.
And that was fun, but I literally started tuning my guitar differently so I wouldn't be tempted to play those songs anymore. I had to retire them because I was getting so stuck in just like, oh, I'm playing the Channels album for this set, So,
I think that's a cool flexibility to have as an artist,
Yeah.
Like it's cool that you can find that connection to your music and that it's ever evolving and it doesn't get static. Like what you're describing sounds like a very dynamic process of creativity. Seems like a very dynamic experience for you and ultimately for us, the listeners. Like, we, as someone that's just been a listener, I will feel like tuned into kind of the aspects you're describing of it spiritually and otherwise.
Well, the problem with it is when it's magical, it's magical. Like when it just hits and like I'm a clear enough channel at that moment and like the audience is in the right mind state, like, and it gets to that moment, it's like, wow, mind blown. But if things are a little off or I'm not feeling totally, or I'm feeling too in the mix with my mind and overthinking, like it can kind of reflect that. So I'm kind of stuck with like, I don't have something to fall back on as far as my songs, So that's been a process too over the last 15 years of trying to figure out. And thankfully that seems to like lessen in that the foundation is just that like, I'm a human who's alive and like, even if there are like imperfections or mistakes, like something magical can still happen. And so like, that's where I've kind of gotten to with like, kind of going easy on myself for like getting in the way or overthinking an improvised piece. But like I said, ultimately it's another paradox. And I should mention Infinite Third itself was a name that I came up with to demonstrate like the paradox that I feel in this, being that I'm the third, that's my human side. That's like the puny ant side of me that like doesn't know what's happening, and infinite being that like, I do think that I have just my own spirituality, but I just do think that we're all kind of, we're this life force energy that's coming through us. And, it's not part of it's what drives our personalities. It's not our personalities. Our personalities are kind of just like these little people that think we have like all these issues and stuff. So that you can tell that like, I'm very much aware of the extremes of this yin and yang of existence, and it comes through in this music.
Yeah, and this isn't to like blow smoke or whatever. I do think part of it too for me is like, I know that they're out there for sure, but I don't personally interact with a lot of artists that are like you or like your music or in that genre of really does take you to another place, and like all the stuff you described about it. Like a lot of the music I typically listen to on a day-to-day basis is your more, kind of standard songwriting type stuff that has its own spirituality and organicness to it, and like provides a different element to the many layers of Corey as I'm like listening to music throughout the day. But I was just like, man, how do you get into doing the kind of music that like you do? Like I always found that so fascinating. It's like I just don't know a lot of people that interact with their music in the same way, or are just like in that like zone of like surrounded by the different boards and the effects, and
I think it's something in my like imprint, like me as a human, the way that I am, is that I find it hard to like, when people say like fake it till you make it or something like that, or like I find it hard to do. So like I'm very much like, if I'm going to say something or express something, I have to mean it. Like it's very hard for me to just be like, to say something and not mean it. And that's a problem sometimes, because sometimes you have to just say things or express things and like hope that you mean it later. But, and I think, so that's like part of my struggle with my music, is that like, I found out early on that when I just like regurgitate a song, I find it really hard to like mean it every time. I find it hard to like, because it only represents a moment in my life, and I'm constantly having moments. So now I've committed to this way of just expressing what's true for me right now, instead of something that was once true for me. And actually, I actually envy people who are good songwriters and can just play their songs, because a good songwriter plays their song from the present, and they're singing their lyrics that they wrote a long time ago, but they still are finding a way to feel it and mean it. And like, I wish I had that more, and maybe I should kind of like, find my version of that. But I think it's just like, it comes from that. It's like, the only way I've found to be authentic in front of people is to create it on the spot with them, so they could see that I'm not just like pushing a button, or that I'm just like following a script, because that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to like have an experience. And when I say here, I mean like at a show. I'm here to have an experience and like see what happens with it. And that illustrates like what I also believe, which is the audience is creating it. When I'm sitting alone in my room and doing it, I can't really access that the same way. I genuinely feel like their ears taking it in is creative. Like it's not a passive thing. It's this loop that we're having, where I'm feeling what they're feeling and they're feeling what I'm feeling, and it's influencing each other in a 50-50 way, not in a I'm the performer, you're the audience. And so like I value people that come to a show and like can have an experience and like be open, because that's the whole thing. It's like I have to be open, you have to be open. It's a vulnerable place, but that's where something really cool happens.
100%. And I feel like that is true for a lot of different types of music, is that you really do feel when the vibe is there of artists and audience, and like you're on the same wavelength and you're connecting. And I remember in my days of performing live shows, like as a drummer, there would be plenty of shows where I would be experiencing the exact same sensation you're describing, where I would feel like I would like Corey would cease to exist, and I would become one with the drum set. Yes. And just start like feeling the music kind of like go through. And I always felt like those are my favorite and best performances when I wasn't in my, it was a little bit different because I had parts I had to remember, things like that. But like we did have set songs, but anytime I could just like, and the same goes true for if I'm sitting here recording a podcast with somebody, like if I can just kind of breathe out, let it go, and just become like locked into the moment, what the feeling is, what the vibe, and what the like spirituality of it just kind of start to like do its magic and like connect me with the audience or the guest or whatever the connection point is. Like those are always times when I feel like it's so much more grounded in who I want to be as an artist versus like feeling like, okay, I got to make sure, do this, like, or like I'm on, okay, I got to make sure I hit the, like just being able to like let it go and kind of become one with it. I resonate a lot with like how you're describing it.
Yeah. I mean, this goes for everything. This isn't just an art thing. Like this is just life is kind of about what we're trying to talk about here. And I think that like too often we're trying to plan out, like we live on these schedules and these calendars that we have to live on to like be part of the world, part of society. But like, that's not what we're meant fully to be living like every day. like we're kind of meant to have this spontaneity like animals, you know? So that's like that's part of the disconnect of why people can't access their emotions, or why people repress things. It's like you have to repress things to like go back to work after you go through something, you know? And just on a small scale, you have to repress that like you feel existential dread at 8:45 a.m. and you have to start work at 9, you know? So I don't know. It's like,
it's such a weird balance of that. Yeah. That organic and spiritual elements of being human versus the like heavily organized, you know, like regimented.
Yeah.
It's weird. I'm glad we're touching on all this though. I kind of had an inkling when I asked you to come on the pod. Like there's obviously all these things I want to make sure we touch on, like in the world of Billy Mays III. But I also, just from the, you know, like what I've observed on social media, the interactions we've had, I was like, I have a feeling I'm probably going to like try to cut deep on all these different topics. So I do appreciate, I appreciate the music we're making together right now. How about that?
Yeah.
But Holy Noise, I do want to touch on that because you released an over 9 hour, 36 songs album that I absolutely love. Like and the description was, I pulled off your website, an absurdly long connection of ambient meditations that were improvised live on Twitch streams between 2021, 2023. And I do have to read this part because I was like, this guy, man, this is why we connect. But you said, but Billy, in a world where the recommended content length is 21 to 34 seconds to appease the algorithm, why release an album with 36 tracks that total almost 9 hours? And then he used I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is, Forrest Gump quote. And there's a whole bunch more to that, but I had to get that out there.
That was the whole point of like, at some point I knew I wanted to put out some of these recordings, some of these very ambient meditative recordings that were taken from my live streams. And like I sequenced them and I made them better than just what they were on the live stream. Like I put them in order and I picked the best ones. There's like, if I've released all the material that I had for Holy Noise, it would be like triple that length. So this is 9 hours of like what I felt was the best. But that's the whole point was like, it had to go in that direction because like even just releasing like a 10-minute song, which is common in my world of post rock and ambient, whatever, but to release a 10-minute song like goes against principles of like what they tell you to do as a musician to like succeed. So I was just like, all right, I'm done trying to like appease the algorithm, like I said, and like I just have to go in the other direction for this. And it really empowered me to be like, and to be honest, Holy Noise it's one of the most well-received releases I've ever done. And I don't know if that just has to do with like, because I went so far in that concept that like people do put it on when they go to sleep and they feel more like they understand the meaning of it, which was let it be in the background. Let it be something that you passively listen to, which is that's why the term ambient music was coined, was that basically it's music that could be equally listened to with full focus or just like in the background of your world. And that's important to me. I don't know, just being able to put something on that's not intrusive, that also carries a lot of meaning for the artist. And then, I don't know, it's just like 9 hours. I wasn't expecting people to really get it, but I feel like I get the most feedback on that. And the fact that like there is a 9 hour album, like people like respect that. So I appreciate all the feedback and thank you for bringing it up and telling me.
Yeah, for sure. And Mouth Council.
Okay.
I'm just going to lay out for this one.
Well,
like talk about Mouth
Do you know Mouth Council? Like, have you seen it?
I know about it from hearing about it on your interview you did on Jason's pod 5 or 6 years ago is when I first heard about it. And I followed along with it. So I'm like vaguely, I'll give you my understanding of it and then you can correct me full stop. But my understanding of it is you're on stage. It's like a show, but multiple people are invited on stage with you. And it's a human loop pedal or like effect pedal, like that each person's doing an effect. You're making a loop. I don't know. That's my understanding.
It's close. Yeah, that's good. That's a good start. So basically we sit in a circle. When I sit on the ground and play my Infinite Third sets is essentially like me just improvising and seeing where it goes. Mouth Council is some kind of answer to like Infinite Third is very serious and heavy and like deep. Mouth Council is the answer to like, well, I still want to interact with people and I still want to be joyful and fun and funny, you know? And so I basically took the one loop station that I use that's like very important to the whole thing. And I got a microphone and a short cable and I invite people to sit in a circle with me. And I've been doing this pretty much just as long as I've been doing Infinite Third. It started like a year or two after. And basically I'll start it off with like a little beatbox. I'll start looping it and then I'll pass it to the next person. And I tell everybody like, do whatever you want to do when you get the microphone. You can speak, sing. And I say, if you can't come up with something, just make an animal sound. And like, we'll make it sound good. So basically that happens. It's all based on the random people that come around. Sometimes it's just people out of the crowd. Sometimes it's other musicians, you know, whatever. Sometimes it's people on the street when I've done like busking with it. So by the end of this, it's gone around once or twice and I've collected a bunch of sounds and I'm mixing it into a song like live and I'm kind of tweaking it and making drops happen, changing the tempo and all this stuff. And I've gotten really good at it in the sense that like I've gotten good at like highlighting the other people's voices and like because I don't do much. I just start off with a little hi-hat and then the rest I'm just doing with my hands and it's so everyone else can shine. So I look at it as the exact opposite of Infinite Third. It's like Infinite Third is this deep collaboration with myself and my soul, and Mouth Council is a collaboration with everyone else. And that's what it is. And it's almost more welcome than Infinite Third in a lot of Infinite Third has like really specific ways that you can invite me to play, but Mouth Council can kind of happen anywhere. I just recently did this Atlanta Fringe Festival and I did it with kids. We did a kids fringe where I've done that a lot. We did a busking thing for street fringe. I also did it on the main stage, like before the show started, the theater shows, I mean. And that's the thing. I've done it at hip hop shows, like open mics. It's something that I can have that's more simple that I can do anywhere. Since I'm not like a songwriter, I can't take an acoustic guitar and play my songs at an open mic. So now I go to an open mic and I just invite other people up and it's this fun thing. And it breaks up the thing of like, you know, there's all folk musicians or whatever. And like, it just kind of breaks up the energy in a good way. And it's all very like positive and community based. And it's not about anyone's like, it's a place where we all get to anyone who joins in like gets their chance to shine for a minute, but you can tell that it's all about the sum of what we're doing shining. So that's Mouth Council. It went away for a couple years after 2020 just because it felt a little weird. I couldn't be out in the world anyway, but like also the sharing the microphone felt a little weird. But now I think we're kind of back to like, yeah, I'll spit on your face. You know, it's like, it's fun. But yeah, so it's back. I've been doing it a lot more and you can go to mouthcouncil.com. I have like a little page about it and you can watch some videos, but you know, I do it at people's like birthday parties and stuff. It's really fun.
That's incredible. I love that so much. I'm not going to lie. I might have to steal it for the next like comedy open mic I go to, like do a comedy Mouth Council. Yeah. I'm not sure what that would look like.
Well, I'll come up for it.
Yeah, there you go. Actually, yes, I will have you lead it.
Yeah.
Why reinvent the wheel? I'm not going to do it when I know the guy that does Mouth Council. Yeah. We'll hit up the open mic comedy.
Well, the thing is like anybody can loop and like, you know, you can like, I encourage anyone to do their own version of this, but also like, I have this method that I've developed for myself that just, I know how to make it into songs and like end it. And like, now I have these things where I have like pads. I have these little 6 pads and each one's a different color. And now I lay them out and people get to pick their color. And it's like a fun part of it, but I don't know. It's just it's got a lot of mythology and lore because so many people have done it and like we all feel part of it now. Done on the radio. Like there's just been...
The Mouth Council is not like the High Council in Game of Thrones or House of Dragon. It's very expansive.
Yeah, it's never ending. It's a lineage. If you've ever touched the microphone, you're in it. You're in the band.
I know. Part of me was like, oh, we should do a Mouth Council on the podcast, but there's only 2 of us.
Yeah, it could work.
How can you do it with just 2 people?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer like, okay. I don't know, 4 to 6, 4 to 7.
We'll maintain the purity of it and not turn it into a gimmick for the show. And but when I heard about that, I was like, man, that's so unique. Like that. I know that there's nothing new under the sun, as they say, but like that has been what's striking to me about like, or this Infinite Third or Mouth Council things. I'm like, at least for my world, my bubble of content and whatever I consume, people I'm connected to, there's just not a lot of things like that out there that I see. Like in that the way that you're creating, like the word unique has always come to mind for me. Like I understand there's people doing similar things, but like for me, it's been pretty unique to experience that and see that.
Well, it's just what I've stumbled into. You know, it's like if there's something I'm supposed to do, it's usually because like I didn't plan it. Like if I'm planning it too much and I'm like, oh, I want to be a vocal looping guy, like that just wouldn't work. It's literally came from, I was making my music and I had a friend who was like singing next to me and I gave them the microphone and I looped their voice. And I was like, oh, that was fun. And then he did it again another time. And then someone else did it one time. We were all hanging out. And then I was like, what if we just do the voices? And then since I'm like a beatboxer anyway, you know, a little bit, we started doing that. And it was like with this really primitive loop pedal. And then all of a sudden, my friend, we were doing it a couple times and he's like, man, this is so cool. It's like some kind of mouth council. And I was like, I don't think I'll ever consider calling it something else. And that's just it. I stumbled into it. I would have never planned to be this like facilitator. Like I do it like as a workshop. Even in 2 weeks, I'm going to be in West Virginia, and 2 of the workshops I'm doing are basically mouth council, where I explain it. We do it as a creative exercise, and then like we kind of just talk about, you know, my philosophy behind it, and also how that philosophy can, you know, be adapted to any project. This kind of like communal yes and kind of thing.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's very reminiscent of like an improv troupe.
It definitely, sure. And I've done a lot of improv shows.
You have? Like,
yeah, like I've like done it with the performers at an improv show before.
Have you done like traditional improv shows? Like, have you performed that kind of improv?
Like me performing as no,
okay.
I don't do that. Yeah, that's the thing. Like I feel like I don't act or anything like that. So like music is my contribution to the creative, to anything.
Well, you made a great contribution with it and continue to do so. And talk to me for a minute, like just the live performance aspect. We were standing in my kitchen talking about that like earlier. Just I feel like that's a common theme regardless of what project you're on. Like there is just something so unique to like how you're doing and approaching. And musicians in general, like that connection, live music versus like you were describing, like creating more of the digital tracks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like talk about that dichotomy.
Well, where I'm at right now kind of stems from this world of AI that we're developing. And I'm not like totally against AI. I think there's something really fun about it at times, but it also brings up a lot of scary and weird things. And with music, like a friend of mine, this was like over a year ago when this stuff was just starting. He inputted into one of the AI music things, like make a song in the style of Infinite Third. And they gave him this 30-second clip that was just like, yeah, I totally could have made that. Like it was just like this textural kind of thing with a little beat. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's cool. And it kind of like disenchanted me from like focusing on my recordings as much for multiple reasons, because music's not as valuable as it once was. And I don't know. And I'm the kind of person that like, I want there to be an AI bot of Infinite Third that just continues on after I die and just is trained on all my music. And you can just go listen to the bot playing forever. I want that. But with the way things are right now, and like, I'm kind of anticipating, because I'm already feeling this, it's like, I'm starting to value more things that can't be replicated by AI. So like this Fringe Festival that I was just at, is a theater. It's independent theater, and it's all kinds of experimental, weird performances that are all like, they're randomly chosen. And then you go to the show and it's like, whatever it is, you experience it. And my first thought, the first show I saw, I looked around and I was just like, AI could never do this. And I was just like, that's why I like this right now, is that like it's living, it's only here. It can't even really be recorded, because even if you take a video of it, it's not the same. And so that's why I've kind of like tripled down on live performance, because all the reasons we've been talking about, you know, about why I'm into it, but also just that like my recordings will live on, but my performances are only here for a limited time. Like, I don't know how much longer my body's going to be able to go. Nobody does, you know? So I'm going to just do it while I can. And I just want to call attention to that for anyone. I want to call attention to the idea that like, if you're at a show, even if the band sucks, like you're not into it, like think about it. Like you're watching this really temporary moment happen, and like whether you like it or not, you're part of it and you're creating it with them. So you might as well give them some good energy and, you know, support it, because that's what we're here to do.
I'm not going to lie. There's been an occasion or two in the past, because I, you know, having been in a band and performed and stuff and being used to being on stage, I would take it for granted sometimes of being at shows. There's a time or two in the past I'll think back on where I'm like, I got to see that band live and I was not as like giving them the good energy as I could have been, because I was much younger and thinking like, oh, you know, whatever, this was what I do. And I'm like, I never had that experience with that band again. And that, like, it really has like hit on me as I get older of like, yeah, don't take any of these artist connections for granted. You know, you're watching live music or anything. You just performed with a puppeteer recently.
Yeah, 2 nights ago. This was Friday night. At Fringe Festival, I met this puppeteer. He does marionettes. His name's Adam Clark, and he goes by Puppet Pants. And he was one of the buskers as well. So I did Mouth Council, and he did his puppet thing like separately. And we both caught each other's sets. He participated in Mouth Council at one point, and I caught his like marionettes, and it was just like, it blew my mind. It was just like this really subtle art form of him using his hands to like make these little puppets come alive, like marionettes, like literally hanging from strings. And he had all these little characters. And we vibed right from the, like we got each other's art. We were just like, wow, like really respectful of each other's art. And the idea came up like a week later, and I was like, what if we do a show like where you perform and I perform? And it's like, it's not a music show, it's not a puppet show, it's just a show of people's art. And it was like perfectly complimentary. We even collaborated a little bit. Like he made some of the puppets dance while I did the thing. And like, and when I say this, like you really have to see it and experience, like his set is really, meaningful. Like it's not just like about the puppets, it's about like what the puppets stand for and mean. Like, I don't know, at the end there's this call to action, and he talks about like, we just created that here, and like if you have an idea, you should also create it. This all started out as an idea in my mind to just have these little creatures, like, you know, and I was just blown away. So anyway, the show was great, and it was just it speaks to what we're talking about. Like AI could make a video of a puppet, but they're not going to be able to have the puppet interact with you. And then even by the time we get there and you can like have a robot doing puppetry, that takes away the point of it, which is at one point he busts out this puppet that has another puppet and that has another puppet. And it's like a puppet puppeteering, puppets puppeteering. And it's just like,
crazy.
Even just the visual of it, like it doesn't do much. It just kind of happens for a minute, but you're just like, that's when it hits and you're like, that's what's happening here. We're all just like, it's puppets all the way down. And we're all just like, you know, trying to create with our, you know, I don't know. I might be putting words into his mouth even, but basically it speaks to that whole thing of, it was really special. And the people that were there, you could tell it was like, wow, like how often do you get to be in a situation like this at all anymore? Because we're on our phones and we're, you know, even at a show, it's just like you're in a sea of people. But to be right up next to someone who's creating from their heart, I don't know, it's just special.
I love the genuine like childlike appreciation you have for how you're describing it too, and it makes me like the juxtaposition in my mind was getting a picture of. We randomly had on some like televised concerts the other night, just like something on TV on background, and just like looking at the TV and seeing all these people at the show. And I've been guilty of this for sure, but like everyone's just on their phones filming it, whatever, or you know, see that with sporting events or whatever. And it really does take me back. Like I'm being constantly reminded of like, these are human connections that are not, pardon the pun, infinite. And so we must, he's like, is this podcast over yet?
No.
It's too many fun.
No, I love it.
No, but just, yeah, like, so I don't know. I just appreciate what you're saying and like your own personal ability to like connect with that so much and be able to collaborate with something like that. Cause I feel like we miss out on so much in life when we're unable to, you know, really be present with other people and have, I used to have a therapist that kind of described it as like when, like having the ability to hold space for other people, you know, like, you're human and we share a lot of similarities, but you're also an entirely unique kind of like person and creation and whatever. Like I have to be open to what you're creating, the vibes you're putting out, like vice versa.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's how, the older I get, the more I'm just like, any connection I can make with another human being is like one of the most magical things out there, because it just seems like the world is not set up for that kind of like organic connection in general. Like the ability to like actually have a solid community or like really be on the same wavelength with somebody.
They really don't even warn us. There's no way to warn someone that as you get older, like all the stuff that is cliche, like happens, like you have less close friends, like it just, life becomes this thing. And I don't know, how do you, like, do you experience that you also start to realize how temporary some like connections are, and not because they go bad or anything, just because like it was only meant to be for this like 1 year, you knew this person and your interests and your something aligned. And then like you have really fond memories of that, but like in your mind at the time, you're thinking, oh, this is a lifelong friend I have. And they are a lifelong friend, but they're not a lifelong, like daily part of your life or weekly or, you know, does that make sense?
100%. I think about it all the time. And there's definitely different levels to conceptualize it on. Cause like on one level, I could be like, oh, you know, like you and I are a good example of, okay, I've been connected with you on social media for the last 5 years, but like this is only the second time we've ever hung out in person. Mm-hmm. But on another level of that, it's like, oh, here's this person I met and struck up a conversation with or had some small connection with 5+ years ago that we're sitting here today. Like we maintained some kind of friendship over that time, which is pretty miraculous in my estimation. So it's all these different layers and levels too that you can view it, but I 100% agree and resonate with what you're saying about that, because I've always tried to fancy myself as somebody that generally tries to be open-minded to the people around me and open to being present with people and wanting to love them and reciprocate that and kind of like be about that community in a real actionable way. And my wife, Megan, is very similar. So to my great shock and dismay, sometimes I'll be like, oh, it doesn't matter if I did every right thing in my mind or try, like some people, are only in your life for a season. Yeah. And to me, I've never been the person that sat there an hour. Like I experience feelings like anger and bitterness, you know, like I'm human, but I never sat there and actively been like, I'm going to cut someone out of my life, you know? Yeah. It's just how the seasons go and ebb and flow and how it takes you. So that is why I think more than ever, I'm like, wow, these things are miracles. Like when you can maintain any kind of connection. And
that goes for art and like how we got here anyway, but just like, you know, you don't know. I don't know. I feel like sometimes I take it for granted if I see a band or something or a local musician or something like that, where like they're just part of your kind of like landscape of your life, the band or whoever. And like, it can be magical, but like, I don't know, part of me, I'm in the back of my head thinking, well, I'll see them again. Like this isn't the last time, but you never know when the last time you'll see them is. And like, I can think of local musicians in Florida that I never knew that it was that temporary and I really connected with their music, but the handful of experiences I got with their music is like, I barely have memory of it now, but like at the time I didn't realize that it was going to be such a special thing that wasn't going to be around forever, you know?
I have things like that all the time, or it's not just friendships or relationships, but like, experiences, people, other people's art or whatever, that I've had the same exact experience where I'm just like, man, I didn't realize that was only going to be for that time, or that was so temporary, or that wasn't going to like last forever. There's been a lot of that over time, which, you know, selfishly, like this podcast has been a great creative venture for myself on so many levels, but and in some kind of way it started out with like the realizing the permanence of life and like how, you know, not to get too more, I mean, whatever, it's gotten pretty deep here, but like, you know, death comes for us all, and like all these, you know, relationships like ebb and flow, and you're in the season of life and things, you know, all the things we're talking about. And I was like, man, podcasting is almost kind of a perfect way to, at least in my human effort, like try to capture these moments in time. Cause I can at least now listen back to conversations I've had with people, and it is like a time capsule, doing this for 4 years. So selfishly, this venture in and of itself has been an effort to try and combat some of that, you know, impermanence of life or whatever.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of this ties back in. The part that I didn't say about like my origin story for music was that only 4 months before my dad died in June of 2009, in February of 2009, I had an apartment fire where I lost everything I owned, and including like music gear, anything. I literally had my wallet, keys, phone, and clothes that I was wearing. And that was it. And so that gave me this weird, that was almost harder than losing my dad, because like death is a part of life, but like not everyone has to go through losing all their possessions in like a chaotic fire, you know? So that was a little hard to.
That is an experience I can't relate to.
Yeah. And that was a little harder to deal with, like the chaos of it. Like it just didn't feel natural. And it gave me this weird, that I still, I mean, I'll get to why, but it gave me this weird relationship to possessions, to where I started not holding on to anything because I lost everything. And I still can't even remember some of the stuff I lost, if you think about it, but I have this longing for it, some of it. And for years after that fire, I wouldn't keep anything. I would just constantly be letting it go. And I wish I wouldn't have. And now I've kind of come back around to like, I have a lot of possessions. And one of the ways this manifests is I have like an action figure shelf where I collect action figures. Like I'll go to flea markets and I'll try to find like nostalgic things for like $1 that like mean something to me from my childhood. And to me, that's like this representation of, it's a really meaningless thing, but it's what I give to it that means something. And I don't know, that plays into this whole thing of like, I've kind of gone, that's the full circle of like, I'm kind of longing for these things that I didn't know were so temporary. Like at one point in my life, I went to college and I told my mom, hey, it's cool, you can throw away all my toys. I don't need them anymore. And I look back at that, I'm like, I wish I would have kept like 3 of them just for like keepsake. You know, I'm the type of person, I do save like memories. We just took our daughter, who's 3.5, to see Inside Out 2. And I kept the movie tickets and I'm put them in this little box.
I'm the same kind of way.
Yeah. I mean, It's like my partner kind of laughs at me for that. She just kind of looks at it as like, you know,
I think
hoarding.
I have movie tickets from like 10 years ago when Megan and I started dating.
Yeah. See, yeah. I mean, I get it, man, the sentimentality, but I don't know. So it's like, it's a way to, I'm in a way, I'm proud of myself that I keep things now after having those years of like being afraid to keep anything for fear that it might just get lost. So I don't know. I think I'm just trying to say that like, to me, that also kind of plays on this whole idea that I'm trying to like remember that everything can kind of mean something in the moment. And even if you don't know exactly what it means yet. So like this podcast, like now, like the time we're on, like we may look back at this as like just a passing moment, or we might look back at it as a really, really important moment in our lives, you know?
Oh, I know. I'll look back on it as an important, no question. So we are kind of in the wrap up part of the pod, but there is one thing I wanted to touch on for like 2 minutes, because this is going to sound like really sad or whatever, but you're one of my only like pro wrestling friends at the moment. So I started getting back into recently, probably like, so the context is my whole childhood, my whole like through high school and whatever, super into wrestling. Anyone that's listening that's not into wrestling, bear with us here. This is going to come full circle. I know it's not on the subject of like grief and impermanence and, you know, music and art and creativity, but
though all those things are touched on in wrestling.
100%. Thank you. This is why we're talking about this. That's why you're my wrestling friend. But no, I started getting back into it the last couple of years. I was probably lapsed for like 15 years, probably like 2008 when I started college, just completely fell off the map to like, last year. So my question for you is, did you watch Money in the Bank last night?
I was kind of packing for my trip that I'm on right now. And a lot of times on like the less important, premium live events, I'll kind of, or the weekly TV, I'll kind of watch vicariously through social media, and I'll kind of follow all the people that I follow and watch them. So I've watched it. I've listened to one wrap up podcast, so I know everything that happened, and I've seen all the clips. So, but I didn't watch it live. But okay. I have a feeling about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll need to find a compromise. I think like part of me is trying to make up for those lost 15 years where like since January 2023 or probably like WrestleMania 39. I think I've watched. I can't believe I'm confessing this on the podcast. I'm still like coming to terms. Like you told me earlier how you came to a point where you're just like, wrestling's cool. I'm unapologetic about it. I'm still coming to the unapologetic point in my fandom. I'm still very apologetic.
What you got to do is you got to buy a wrestling shirt and just wear it.
Just wear it.
And then like, just be like, this is my wrestling shirt.
Because it was a huge part of my life growing up. So it's like, it's not just out of nowhere for me entirely.
Well, but, we also all have like it's a really dark history if you think about it. Wrestling has a lot of skeletons, and we all kind of were raised by a monster at this point, Vince McMahon. So we're in a new era, and it feels different. It still has its issues, like every 100%. Industry does.
Yeah,
but there's something cleansed right now about it, where we're not living in that shadow of this horrible person.
And that's really when I started to get back into, I guess, unbeknownst to me, is like coming out of that era.
Yeah.
Really.
And you know, I won't get too detailed about it, but like it does seem like something's happening in the world of wrestling where it's more back and forth with the audience. The audience gets listened to, and then they're informing the creativity of the wrestlers and of the people. I
just watched the documentary that WrestleMania 40.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's hard to really, for someone who doesn't watch wrestling, to understand the art of it, but I don't think there's another art form that has this meeting of all these different mediums. Like movies have their thing, music has its thing, books has its thing, theater has its thing, but none of them have this confluence of drama, athleticism, theater, character, music, visuals, like live entertainment. Like there's just so much. It's Shakespearean. It's like there's something that nothing else hits on. Sports has the athletic part and like a very exciting version of that, but you don't really get the theater and you don't get the art and the creativity as much. That's not really valued in that world, you know? So that's what I'm saying. Like it hits something for me that no other medium does.
That's the exact word I was thinking of, was confluence. Like it is a confluence of all those things. And my friend, let me tell you, I cannot, if somebody asks me, like just out in the wild, like, Corey, why do you like wrestling? Like what that seems like a weird part of your personality we weren't aware of. Like, I don't have a good answer, but I think that is my answer ultimately, is like why I was obsessed with it as a kid. And now, in my mid 30s,
and nostalgia is one of the things that it plays on for people. So that's, but 1000%. You know, imagine a new fan coming up and they don't have that nostalgia. That's interesting. You know,
it is. So yeah, it is that like equal parts nostalgia for a different time in life, like just the childhood and like all the things we grew up with, because that really was like an era of that medium that was unlike any other. So it does kind of hit you different, but also how it just combines all these elements, like the pageantry of it, the storytelling, the drama, the athleticism, everything you said. I don't know what, but I'm just in the mode now where like I don't think I've missed like a premium live event or a show since that early 2023, and I'm sure with our daughter coming, I'm going to have to compromise more on that. But
one of my daughter's first words was power bomb, because we do a power bomb. Yeah, like on the couch, she loves it.
Okay, that gives me some. All right, that's good. Because I'm like, they got me pretty well hooked at this point. I'm definitely gonna it's gonna be on in the background somewhat. So
yeah.
Okay. Well, pro wrestling aside, we'll connect on that offline.
And here's the line. I think this is it. If anyone is like, it's fake, right? It's not fake. It's predetermined. Because it's not fake. Wrestling is more real than a lot of things, if you think about it. But they're trying not to hurt each other. So that means that part is fake, but everything else about it is real. And there's real things happening.
That made me think of like my old days in college studying theology, and just like the Calvinists, like different views of the gospel, how it's like it's all predetermined or whatever. So yeah, wrestling is like the Calvinist theology. No, I'm kidding, but
there's something there.
That is a good. Yeah, I'll find it. But that is a good way to describe it, though. But yeah, we can talk. We'll nerd out on that. I've never talked about that with anybody on the podcast, and I try to make each episode like feel as unique as possible. So that's the subject we're hitting. Like when I first started this podcast, I was like, pop culture, music, movies, TV, because I'm just like a huge nerd and I'm into like all of it. And over time, I've realized like, I probably got to be a little bit more focused. So these are my little 3-4 minute pockets to have some fun. All right, so last couple of things to wrap up here. I like to ask this of all my guests. Pretty common podcast question, but just like, what general encouragement would you give to anybody listening? We've touched on a lot of subjects, but I don't know if you had like, just give any kind of encouragement to somebody.
I didn't really think about that. I mean, I feel like we touched on a lot of encouragement about appreciating art and artists, and
maybe that's maybe
well,
we just come back to
let me think about it. Let's
okay, while he thinks about it, I'm going to recap Money in the Bank. No,
I think what I'm dealing with right now that might not be obvious is I'm kind of like intentionally trying to humble myself in like private ways about things that I kind of hide from myself, like what they call like unconscious behaviors and stuff, like things that I don't even let myself know that I have a problem with, like the way I think about something or the way I judge something. And I'm trying to like dig those out right now. And it's not a fun process, but I do encourage people to seek this out. Like for, repression, like we repress things, parts of ourselves as a form of protection, but then really we need that part to be conscious. We need it to come out and be conscious so that we can grow into the people that we want to be. So I don't really have a really specific encouragement, but I think the encouragement itself is to like try to work past any ways that you think you're like complete and figured out, and just like find the ways that you're hiding from yourself to kind of become more fully you. Wow, I wasn't trying to go there, but that probably doesn't even make that much sense. But for me, it's been a process of like tricking myself into admitting that I'm not who I think I am. We have like these ideas of who we are, and like we have to be able to see all of us, which includes the parts that we don't allow ourselves to see. And a lot of that comes from childhood and just society in general.
As somebody that has spent many years trying to dig deep in therapy and through church and through many other means into those things, I completely resonate and appreciate what you're saying, because I really have felt like counterintuitively, the more I've always had this desire to connect with people, coming from being a child and feeling like I was just more isolated from people for whatever reason, and in school and stuff. So the older I've gotten, connection has become a huge sticking point for me, wanting to build community for myself, for Megan, for our daughter. All of it has been super important to me, stemming from that isolation. And I feel like a large part of that for me has been getting that wisdom from people that I have to, like, it's the continual diving inward, into everything you described. So I think that's very legit. I think it feels counterintuitive maybe, but that really plays an important role in everything we discuss, is being able to dig those things out of yourself and figure out, all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate you sharing that. All right, I gotta but I'm not done yet. Where can people follow your work? Sorry, I'm a guru. Where can people follow your work? How can they support, get connected, upcoming shows, all that kind of stuff,
At Infinite Third on social media, and infinitethird.com. I believe in websites in a world that we've kind of gotten away from websites meaning anything. I even though not a lot of people spend time on it, I still try to keep my website updated with like how I want it to be. And you can go and learn about my music, and you can see where I'm playing. There's like a tour tab. And then there's a Mouth Council page on that if you want to learn about that. And really that's it. I don't know. I don't know where I'll pop up next. Like I used to be on Twitch, but I don't really stream right now. So who knows what the next weird conglomerate social media thing is that I'll have to be on just to reach the world.
And if I may, I'll plug your Patreon.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Which I've been, not to pat myself on the back, but I've been a subscriber.
I know.
I love your work. I was happy to.
Well, it's $3.33 a month, and it's that number just because I feel like it's like a negligible enough number where you don't have to think about it too much. And I really have kind of gotten away from sharing everything on my social media, and I've decided to just every Wednesday morning I post a new piece of music that's just for Patreon subscribers. So whether it's a live recording or an old demo or just a new song I've made that I'm working on, that goes up every Wednesday morning for the subscribers. And then I do like a monthly post that is kind of just updates about things. But there's this whole section where it's like all the movies I watched that month, Some songs I'm recommending that month, I link to them on YouTube and everything. And so I'm proud of my Patreon. I think it's like, I think the people who subscribe, like, I'm actually thinking about them because they're the ones that are actually invested in my work and not the random people that I'm trying to get their eyes to see my work on Instagram or whatever. Like, they're there just because it showed them that. Patreon people are there because they chose to be.
Billy Mays III, this has been a long time coming. I'm so glad we got to do this, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on the Easter Pod, for being a wonderful human, wonderful artist, wonderful creative. I look forward to hopefully doing this again soon, and I really can't thank you enough. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much. This is awesome. Thank you for all your hospitality and for hosting me. And man, let's do it again sometime.